telling you moments ago about all of the various stories that have been breaking about Hunter Biden. And we get more reports this week about Hunter Biden's artwork and who exactly has been buying it. It turns out we now know the answers, and Hunter Biden's known for some time, despite the White House's claims that it was all going to be kept secret. Joe Simonson joins us now. He's a senior investigative reporter for the Washington Free Beacon. Joe, great to have you back with us, sir.
Vince, how are you doing?
I'm doing excellent, and not surprised to discover this week that Hunter Biden's art buyers were absolutely known to Hunter Biden. What do we know?
Sure, absolutely. Well, in the case of one of the purchasers, it's this woman named Elizabeth Niftali, and what makes her purchase of one of his pieces of artwork, we don't know how much she paid for it, but we know that his pieces went into the tens of thousands of dollars. Mind you, this is a man who had no prior experience in art, had only taken up in the last 3 or 4 years, and is already asking for prices more than, I'm not exaggerating, a Picasso print or a Matisse print. You can buy cheaper prints of some of the greatest artists in history for less money than Hunter was charging. But one of the women who purchased a piece of artwork, this woman named Elizabeth Niftali. Now, the problem for the Bidens, ethics-wise, is that about 9 months after she purchased this piece of art, she was appointed to this kind of ritzy commission, federal agency that oversees art and culture projects in Europe. Now, what's even more interesting is that Hunter Biden, and we know this from his laptop, from emails on his laptop, had been asked about getting his aunt on that commission before from his cousin. And even more than that, emails show that his former business partner, Eric Sherwin, Hunter said, asked him about getting appointed to this very same commission after his father first won the vice presidency in 2008. And he was appointed, this business partner, Eric Sherwin, was appointed to the commission in 2015. So it's a commission that Hunter Biden is very familiar with, that he had been asked about helping out people before, and coincidentally, less than a year after this huge Biden donor, Democratic donor, buys one of his pieces of art, she gets a spot on the commission.
Right. So Hunter Biden's proximity to this commission is really clear. Based on all of the emails we've seen now, to your point, he clearly had some sway over people who were appointed there. And all of the dots line up. You know, she buys the art, and then months later, she ends up on this commission. This seems, at this point, it almost seems like an open and shut case of quid pro quo.
Well, exactly. And another part that's interesting, and it's again important to emphasize that the White House was asked about this about 2 years ago. Then White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said that they would put up all these ethical guardrails, and it would be impossible for us to know who was purchasing the art because the gallery would make sure everything was anonymous. Well, it also turns out that actually Hunter Biden personally knew one of the other buyers, this man named Kevin Morris. Now, your listeners might be familiar with Kevin Morris. He's the same guy who has lent Hunter Biden as much as $2 million to pay for his back taxes, his lifestyle in Los Angeles, and probably his fraternity.
He was also the guy. He was also the guy seen smoking a bong last week, I think, hanging out at the same place with Hunter Biden.
He's a very cultured individual, and what's even interesting about that as well is that Kevin Morris previously had gone around saying, "Oh no, these were a gift. These were a gift." Turns out that was a lie. He purchased them. So we have a guy who's allegedly lending Hunter Biden millions of dollars out of the goodness of his heart, and now he has $2 million. Or Hunter's $2 million in debt to this guy, and the same guy is now buying pieces of art from him for tens of thousands of dollars. It's unbelievable.
Yes, it is unbelievable. In fact, I'm reminded that that by one of your colleagues, Andrew Kerr, has reported on Kevin Morris. Kevin Morris is also now the owner of Hunter Biden's Chinese private equity firm. When Hunter Biden, quote, divested from the private equity firm, the interest went to Kevin Morris. Like this lawyer owns it. So there is something super suspicious about this entire arrangement, Joe.
Mhm. Yeah, no, there's no question, and again, it just defies any sort of ethical explanation. And on that that equity stake that Morris now had, that was 10% for a Chinese conglomerate. It wasn't just any company; it was a Chinese conglomerate that specializes in energy and other stuff. And Hunter had that 10% stake, as I'm sure you remember, and it was dogging the White House for years and years, and Joe Biden on the campaign trail before that. It's like, well, does he still own it? Does he still own it? Does he still own it? And they would say, no, 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 while he did the whole time, and then eventually just transferred it over to this guy, this 10% equity stake. And now suddenly he's lending Hunter Biden millions of dollars and buying his artwork.
Okay, so let me return to the first person we've been discussing here. Mm-hmm. This is Elizabeth Hirsch Naftali. We know that she purchased artwork from Hunter Biden for an unknown sum of money. She was later appointed to a board in which Hunter Biden has demonstrated influence over in the past. And then you've done some new reporting on her proximity to the White House. What can you tell us?
Yes, and Vince, it's just more coincidences. She had never been in the White House before that art show, before she purchased that art. Suddenly, since then, she's been to the White House, I believe, correct me if I'm right, I have it in front of me, I think we looked at the White House visitor logs 12 or 14 times.
You said you write at least 13 times in your reporting today.
Sure. So at least 13 times, that's just for the most up-to-date visitor logs. They come out very slowly. She has met with some of the most senior people in the White House. She had a one-on-one meeting with Neera Tanden, the senior policy advisor. She's been invited to groups, various private gatherings. And again, none of this happened before she purchased that piece of art.
And she was already a Biden campaign donor, and she's already donated to the DNC. But it seems that the pivot point was after she gave money to Hunter Biden, after she enriched him, all of a sudden the doors were opening at the White House.
Yes, and again, the commission she serves on is devoted to European cultural and heritage sites. The idea that she would have any business with someone like Neera Tanden, domestic policy advisors, again, it just doesn't add up.
No, it doesn't. I have seen there. I just to pull the lens back on kind of like the broader reaction to this story today. I've all of a sudden I'm seeing people like at the New York Times and NBC News beginning to tweet out your reporting today, which shocks me because that normally doesn't happen. Do you get just give me a sense of the vibe here? Do you think that the tide is turning against Biden among some of the legacy press?
Well, I don't want to get ahead of myself. I mean, in the past several months, we've had really a tremendous amount of damning reports, investigations, testimony about the Biden family, about Hunter Biden, about how the Justice Department is being run. And for most of that time, it's been complete silence, and coverage has been relegated to, me and some of my, excellent colleagues. But one of the things that I think is sort of agitating the legacy press, and I'm sure you've covered it on your show, is the White House's line has subtly shifted on what Joe Biden's relationship is with Hunter. As I'm sure many of you recall, for years the line was, I have never discussed any business with my son Hunter. That was a lie when he said it. We knew it was a lie when he said it. But there's been so much more information coming out that it's very hard for reporters to ignore. Now the line from the White House is, the president has never been in business with Hunter Biden. And when you see the White House,
I'm going to play it. I'm going to play it for you, Joe. This is what Karine Jean-Pierre Caringe was saying yesterday on this subject.
Chairman James Comer today says that the Oversight Committee, has evidence that the president in the past communicated directly with foreign business associates of his son Hunter Biden many times. Curious if the White House and the president still stand behind his comment that he's never been involved and has never even spoken to his son about his business?
So I've been asked this question a million times. The answer is not going to change. The answer remains the same. The president was never in business with his son. I just don't have anything else to add.
Was never in business with his son. Now, I noticed the first time they used that line was somewhere in the vicinity of June 23rd. They began saying some version of this, and it was clear they've been workshopping it essentially for over the last month. But it is a clear, Joe, as you point out, goalpost shove from the actual questions around his prior position that he never just, quote, discussed business with his son.
Right, yeah, and that's exactly right. And I found it interesting as well that Karine Jean-Pierre said, well, my position has never changed before. It's like, well, you quite literally changed.
Yes.
They've never talked about it, which was silly, even if you didn't know anything. Imagine anyone saying, I've never discussed business with my son before. It's like, well, what do you do all? It's like, what do they talk about? How was your day?
Right.
You would think it would come up. But now it's a very deliberate wording, and again, it is a change, despite what the White House is saying, is to being in business with his son, and that's very legalistic, and that could mean a lot of different things. Were they in an LLC together? No, I don't know, but what does in business mean? And that's far more ambiguous than their previous position, that they had never discussed it before.
Yeah, no question. And it's a sign that they know the dam is breaking and that they're going to have to be able to explain some very damning evidence that is coming out in the very near term. Devin Archer testifies next week before Congress. He is a Hunter Biden business partner, and he is ready to say in public that, according to Miranda Devine at the New York Post, that over 24 times Joe Biden got on the phone with Hunter Biden's foreign business partners in order to schmooze them and to settle up these deals. Clearly, the man is involved in Hunter Biden's business dealings, whether or not you want to say he was, quote, in business with his son.
Right, I think that's exactly right. And, one of the things that Archer is expected to testify about is that Hunter Biden in business meetings would take out his phone and do what Archer called a party trick, which is say, hey, let me get my dad on the phone. And the dad would just kind of, say, oh, here's my dad, like say hi to my dad. And Archer says it's happened on over a dozen occasions. And at a certain point, whether they were in business or not, the idea that Joe Biden didn't know what Hunter was doing, again, that it just doesn't pass the smell test.
No, not at all. Joe Simonson, thank you as always for your excellent reporting and the excellent work broadly of the Washington Free Beacon. Thank you, sir. Good to talk to you today.